They're not the same thing, but we use them interchangeably. If somebody hurts me, I say I'm offended. If I'm in disagreement, I'm offended that they don't agree with me. If I'm in discomfort, I'm offended that I dare be made to feel uncomfortable. Come on in. Welcome. Oh, I'm glad you're here. Please, come in and have a seat. Let's see where the conversation takes us. Once upon a time, a long time ago, in my youth, before I had taken my journey into introspection and self-awareness and discovering who I am and why I react to things the way I do, it was my first workplace. I was working at a Pizza Hut. I had applied to be a server, but according to state law at the time, I was not old enough to serve alcohol. I was 18 and you needed to be 19 to be able to serve alcohol, 21 to be able to order it and drink it, but 19 to be able to serve it, which I thought was a silly rule, but I'm not a legislator, so not much I could do about it at the time. So I got offered a job as a cook in the kitchen instead. It was a fun job. Nice perks, all the pizza I could eat practically. But I worked with a bunch of young folks. I mean, it was Pizza Hut. It was Pizza Hut in the 90s. I think the oldest person working there was 22, and that was the store manager. Okay. And so a little bit of a wild workplace, but we had a good time. Can't really complain about it. But I remember one shift, and somebody came in to work their shift. It was one of my coworkers, and he was telling dumb blonde jokes. Now, what's important to know is at that stage in my life, I had dyed my hair blonde. No, I know. It wasn't a good choice for me then. It didn't work. It didn't work well. But I learned later that embracing my red was a better choice. But I had for a while dyed my hair very blonde. Think almost platinum. Listen, we all make wild and crazy choices in our youth. Mine was my period as a platinum blonde, okay? Luckily, I outgrew that. But he was telling dumb blonde jokes. And I got so offended. I got angry. It ruined my shift. It made me not want to work with him. It really created a hostile work environment. So I didn't enjoy going to work anymore, because I chose to be offended over some stupid jokes. Now, I say chose to be offended because I did. I could have chose to not give it any weight and let it go and just mind my own business and go about life. But instead, I chose to invest a lot of emotional energy into disliking somebody who told some stupid jokes, right? I ruined my own work environment. I made it so I didn't enjoy going to work anymore. I didn't really have that big of an effect on the other person because they didn't care what I thought about their jokes. They just kept telling them, which just kept offending me, right? And then it became a battle of wills until I decided I didn't want to work there anymore, and I quit. I let my offense cost me a job I enjoyed. So today, we're going to dive into a topic that affects every single relationship we have: offense. More specifically, how do we stop being offended by everything? Because we have become a nation intent on being offended, reveling in our offense, and shouting how offended we are for the whole world to hear. We really need to rethink. Are we responsible for not offending others? How much ownership do we have in the offense cycle? And are there times when taking offense is actually appropriate and right? And if we're offended by everything, when can we tell when the offense really matters? So, because if we're honest, we live in a world where people are constantly offended. It's almost sport to be offended, like the offense Olympics. Sometimes we are offended for a good reason. But sometimes we're offended because words hit old wounds. So a current situation is being impacted by something from our past. Sometimes because intentions and impact don't match, right? Somebody may not intend to offend, but they're still offensive in their action. And sometimes because we have forgotten that discomfort and offense are not the same thing. So today, let's talk about offense, responsibility, accountability, one of my favorites, communication, and what it means to navigate all of these as healthy adults. Whew, I know. It's a big topic for today, isn't it? I'm excited. Let's dive in. So, what does it mean to be offended? You know me, I love a good definition. Being offended is an emotional response to what happens when we feel disrespected, when we feel dismissed, when we feel attacked, or when we feel our values have been violated. Now, I think it's really important that we can draw a distinction. Something can hurt your feelings without being offensive. Somebody can say something that is accurate, honest, true, based in reality, and it really hurt your feelings. But that doesn't mean that they've done or said anything wrong. That's yours to manage, right? Because feelings are not facts. Remember, we talked about that back on episode 15. If you've missed it, go listen. It's a really good one about analyzing the reality of our feelings. Something can challenge your beliefs without being offensive. Somebody can have completely different beliefs than you and not be disrespectful. Something can make you uncomfortable without being offensive. See, what happens is we get lazy with our language and we use blanket terms and we bundle things together like hurt and disagreement and discomfort are all very different than offense. They're not the same thing, but we use them interchangeably. If somebody hurts me, I say I'm offended. If I'm in disagreement, I'm offended at that they don't agree with me. If I'm in discomfort, I'm offended that I dare be made to feel uncomfortable. Someone can disagree with your political position. You might feel uncomfortable that you're in disagreement, but disagreement doesn't mean disrespect. I can respect your experience, your insight, your perspective, your worldview, and disagree with your conclusion. And I can be okay with the fact that you disagree with mine. What if part of maturity is learning the difference between all of those? Makes you look around and see how very many immature old people we have, huh? They're out there. Maturity doesn't come with age. It comes with self-work. It comes with accountability and reflection and growth, and those things don't happen when you don't open yourself up to accountability. So why do we get so offended? Because often what offends us says so much more about us than it does about the other person, the one who's said or did the thing. See, because our reactions get filtered through our past hurts, through all of our insecurities, and through our expectations, through our trauma, through our personal values. Two people can hear the exact same comment. One shrugs, no big deal. The other one, deeply offended. Why? Why does that happen? Well, it's because people don't react to events. They react to what the event means to them, to what it touches from their past. Like that comment might touch a childhood wound. It could trigger a fear of rejection, a fear of inadequacy, of not being enough, or a fear of not being valued. But here's the thing. The trigger isn't the problem. Trigger is a clue. It means it's time to investigate. It's time to dig deep, do the shadow work to figure out why that trigger is causing the big emotion, why it's causing the big feelings. What is this reaction trying to teach me? What is it trying to highlight? What path is it lighting? Because if I can trace that trigger back to the cause and I can identify the cause, I can now manage my reaction to it. And it doesn't get to control me anymore. I get to choose how I respond and how much energy I invest, rather than having my energy stolen because it just escapes with every time somebody says or does something that hits one of my triggers. So this leads me to the next question, which is it my job to not offend other people? Do I have to filter everything I say? Do I need to walk on eggshells around people? I'm going to be honest with you. I don't do eggshells well. I grew up in an abusive household where it was dangerous to speak your mind, to voice your offense, to object to anything. It was dangerous. It could get you and others injured. You learn not to be offensive. You learn not to break the eggshells. Well, I no longer allow eggshells on the floor in my house. We don't walk on eggshells here. If you are upset by something, speak your mind. We'll talk about it. We'll talk our way through it. But I'm not going to worry about your explosion, because if you're the type that's going to explode, you're not going to be welcome in my house. We don't do that here, because we're all grown-ups. We use our big words and not our big emotions, all right? So, but we do have a level of responsibility. Are we responsible for every emotional reaction another person has? No, obviously not, because where's their accountability? Where's their own personal emotional management, right? But that doesn't mean that we are completely free from responsibility, because what we say and how we say it matters, right? Two truths can exist together. Truth one, people are responsible for managing their own emotions. Truth two, we are responsible for treating people with dignity and respect. You cannot control how people interpret your words, their life experiences, or their emotional triggers. That is not in your wheelhouse, not your job. What you can control, what you are responsible for, is what is your intent? Are you intending to help, to humiliate, to harm, to assist, to prop up, to support, or to tear down, to embarrass, to control? What is your intent? You can control your tone, how you say the thing, because you can use kind words and deliver them in an unkind way. How you say the thing truly matters, and you control that. You can control your behavior, how you act and the choices you make, what you do in and around them, and you control whether you're being unnecessarily cruel. My mom used to like to say that she was a straight shooter and she just said it how it was. And honestly, that was just an excuse for her to be a bully on occasion. I love my mom, and I'm not maligning the dead, but truths are truths, okay? Especially if she had a couple of beers in her, then that her cruelty could be real sometimes, okay? So, and nobody is required to suffer through your cruelty. Should people have the right to be offended? As we are unable to manage other people's emotions, let's be honest, most of us are challenged to manage our own emotion, let alone trying to control somebody else's. But should people have the right to be offended? Of course they do. Absolutely. Everybody has the right to be offended about whatever they want to be offended about, especially here in this country. But should they have the right to never experience offense? That's just plain impossible. You can't move through the world without experiencing offense of some kind, whether it's an offensive smell, an offensive sight, an offensive sound, an offensive intention, right? You're going to encounter things that offend. If I tell a friend, I think you're making a mistake, I don't agree with your choice, they might be offended, but that doesn't mean that I did something wrong. I gave my opinion and spoke my truth to my friend. If they choose to be offended, that's on them. I don't get to control that. Now, how I say it, if I go to my friend and say, you're being really stupid and this is a dumb decision and you're a moron, and they might be offended, and they'd have every right to be, because I'm not coming forward in a constructive fashion. Now, if I go to my friend and say, I really have some concerns about this choice, and I want to ask you some questions to make sure you've thought about all of the possibilities. I'm not trying to attack anything. I'm not trying to talk you out of it. I want to talk through the logic with you and make sure that you've thought of everything that you need to think about. Or I don't think this is a good choice, and I think this is going to really hurt you in the long term. That's different than saying, I think you're stupid. What a dumb thing to do. Why did you do that, you big dummy? Right? Same message, very different deliveries, very different approaches. One thing, as we're on the subject of offense, and my friend and producer actually brought this thought to the table, and I want to give it a little bit of room here in this discussion as well. Is the ability to express your offense a privilege? Are there spaces where it's not safe to express your offense? And I think the answer to both questions is yes. Yes, it is a privilege, because in order to be able to express your offense, you need to be able and willing to handle the consequences of expressing that. There are absolutely places where it is not safe to express your offense. For instance, if I were to stand in the middle of Tiananmen Square in the People's Republic of China and express my offense at the communist government of China, there would be immediate consequences that would impact the rest of my life. Could be execution, imprisonment, punishment. There would be consequences. In certain communities, individuals aren't able to express their offense without risking ostracization or punishment, right? There are homes where people cannot express their offense without risking abuse and injury. So that we have the ability to express our offense loudly and publicly in this country is a privilege. And it's important that, like all privileges, we use that privilege judiciously, that we express our offense when it serves a purpose, and that we don't choose to be offended by all things. Because if I'm offended by everything, how do we know what really matters? So I want to have a quick revisit on intent versus impact. And now we have a whole podcast episode on this subject. It's episode 12. So if you missed it, go back and check that one out. But this is one of those places where intent and impact collide. A person may not intend harm, but harm may still occur. Likewise, someone may feel harmed even when no harm was intended or actually done, right? And I'm thinking about myself back when I was a young child in my first job back at Pizza Hut, right? No harm was actually done when my coworker was telling his jokes. Nothing actually happened to me. I chose to be offended. I chose to let that build into bitterness that tarnished my workplace experience. That was a choice I made, right? No harm was actually done, except the harm I created by being petty. So you make a joke, a friend laughs. Friend A laughs. Friend B feels embarrassed. So now what? Well, there are some questions to ask. If you're the speaker, if you're the joke teller, what impact did my words have? And can I acknowledge that impact? Even though I didn't mean to offend, do I have any responsibility that I did offend? Can I acknowledge the impact and say, hey, I am so sorry that affected you like that. Was not my intention. I was just trying to be funny, and I realized that wasn't funny for you. I apologize. Instead of getting defensive, which is what we typically do, and they get mad at the person for being offended. I get mad at you for being mad at me, because that's always effective, right? If you're the listener, you're not off the hook, though. Right? Because as the listener, as the receiver of the joke in this scenario, you have to ask yourself some questions too. Was harm intended? Did they mean it? Did they tell the joke at you, about you? Or did they just tell the joke in front of you? Because those are two different things. And it's important that we acknowledge and understand that not everything that we hear is meant for us, okay? Could there be another interpretation? Is there another way I could look at it? Is there another spin I could put on it? Is there another explanation for it? And am I reacting to what was said or what I assumed was meant? Am I telling myself stories again? Am I filling in my own blanks without asking any questions? Am I making my negative assumptions? Impact matters, intent matters. Neither should completely erase the other. My intent does not cancel out your impact, but equally true, your impact does not change my intent. We can both be valid in our perspective, and we need to decide what outcome we want to achieve. Do we acknowledge that we're not aligned and we should not share space? Or do we have something that is bigger and deeper than this misunderstanding, and we want to have grace with each other? Maybe educate and inform, maybe share perspective, maybe share experience so that we can understand each other better and grow our relationship. So with all of that said, is there a time when I should take offense? Now, not every slight deserves your emotional energy. Being offended is emotionally taxing. It's heavy. You carry the weight of that offense around with you like a brick in your backpack. Before committing to carrying the weight of that offense, you need to determine, was disrespect actually intended or was it accidental? Was it based in lack of understanding, lack of awareness, unfamiliarity with traditions, protocols, expectations? Is it something where education can fix it, right? If the disrespect was unintentional, then acknowledge it, educate, and move on, right? But if the disrespect was intended, that's a different story. Am I making assumptions? Am I filling in those blank spots in the story with my imagination instead of reality? Will this matter next week? Will you even remember it next week? Right? If it doesn't matter, why am I holding it? Is it a pattern or is it a one-time incident? If somebody does something offensive once and I call them on it and they correct it and it never happens again, then we let that go. Lesson learned. But if it's a pattern of behavior, if they do it, we discuss it, they do it again, and they do it again, and they do it again, now they're telling you that your thoughts on that don't matter, and that's just what they do. Okay? And then finally, what outcome do I want? Sometimes the healthiest response is that wasn't worth carrying. It's not worth carrying the weight of it. Let me pluck that brick out of my backpack and set it down. I acknowledged it. I know it was there, but I'm going to move on. However, there are times when offense is appropriate. If you are repeatedly disrespected, it's no longer a matter of education or unawareness. They know what they're doing. Dehumanization. Anytime somebody dehumanizes you, that is unacceptable because you then become an object, and objects don't have rights. They're human rights, right? In the cases of bullying, zero tolerance for bullying. In the cases of abuse, any abuse, physical, verbal, emotional, mental, all of them, any of them. If they're abusive, it's not good, right? It is appropriate to be offended by abusers. If it is a violation of known boundaries, you notice I put the word known in there. If you have a boundary and somebody's unaware of it, they get one. You outline the boundary and then you watch and see if they violate the boundary a second time, all right? And that's when we can become offended. And then intentional cruelty. If somebody is just plain mean for no reason other than to be mean, we don't have to tolerate that. So taking offense isn't the same as staying offended. You can acknowledge that that wasn't okay without carrying the bitterness forever. And it is important to check people when they offend you. Have the conversation, but have it respectfully. You have to give the respect you want to receive. If you are disrespectful and offensive in how you express your offense, you can't be surprised when people's defensive shields go up and they don't receive the feedback you're giving them. So, what if everyone just got less defensive? So many conflicts are not caused by offense. They're caused by defensiveness. Man, I was so guilty of this, especially earlier in my training career. Man, my boss had to check me on my defensiveness all the time, right? He would ask me about something and I would immediately tense up and my gut would clench and I'd start coming up with excuses and deflections and anything but transparency, right? And so often people come to us and they'll come to us with a harsh or critical tone. And rather than asking them to explain their concern, we start defending ourselves. And as soon as we come defensive, they think they've found something to attack. And so the aggression will escalate. This makes me think of a trainer that I mentored for a couple of years. He was a bright trainer, really good with his class, but his problem was his communication with operations. Every time operations would ask a question about training outcomes, he took it as a direct attack on his ability as a trainer and his integrity as a trainer. Instead of asking them why they were asking those questions and getting to the root cause, which was they were seeing some patterns in new hires coming out of training where they were missing certain things consistently. And they were trying to understand where the miss was coming from. So rather than becoming an investigator with them to figure out, was it something in the delivery? Was it something missing in the agenda or in the content? He was just getting defensive, which made operations think, aha, we found the problem. And so all of their energy went into discovering what was wrong with the training. And when we really dug into it and we got past the defensiveness, the problem was in their nesting support. They weren't getting consistent and reliable responses in their nesting, and we had to adjust the nesting program. The agenda was covering everything, but it wasn't getting reinforced once they left training. And what was really beautiful is being able to coach that trainer through his defensiveness and teaching him to pause. And anytime he felt himself defensive, he was to respond with a question to better understand the ask. And that change right there completely redefined his relationship with his operations partners. And it really grew into a very collaborative, very supportive matchup between those two. The teamwork really went to the next level once he changed his response to those types of inquiries. So if we can eliminate the defensiveness, we can really, really have a better understanding and increase the quality of our communication. When we increase the quality of our communication, we make our relationships better. So instead of becoming defensive, we need to say things like, tell me more, instead of, how dare you question me? Tell me more. So, questions instead of reactions. What did you mean by it? Can you help me understand? Did I hear you correct? My big one for my husband and I is, what I heard you say was. So I tell him what I interpreted from his word choice. And I'll give him the opportunity and say, what did you mean by that? What I heard you say was this. No, that's not what I meant. Okay, so what did you mean? That has saved us from so many arguments. Just pausing to ask that question. Can we talk about this? Right? Sometimes just saying, let's sit down and just talk about it. You tell me your thoughts, I'll tell you my thoughts, and you might find out we're not as far apart as you think. Questions create understanding. Assumptions create division. One of the greatest relationship skills is learning to pause before reacting. Not because your feelings aren't valid, but because your first interpretation isn't always accurate. It doesn't always have all the information it needs. So there is a freedom to being harder to offend. And it is honestly one of the things I am most proud of myself for. I was so easily offended in my youth. And one of the things that I can say with maturity, with the years of experience, I am not easy to offend. You really have to mean it. It has to be super intentional and really direct for me to be offended. Being difficult to offend is not a weakness. It is emotional strength. See, because when you are secure in yourself, every disagreement isn't an attack. When you are confident in who you are, every criticism isn't a rejection. And if you have true self-awareness, every awkward comment isn't a disrespect. You stop giving strangers control over your peace. You stop handing out emotional power to everyone you meet. Not everything deserves access to your peace. So the next time you feel offended, pause. And before reacting, ask yourself these questions. What exactly offended me? Why did it offend me? What story am I telling myself? And is there another possible explanation available? Then decide intentionally how you want to respond. Not react, respond. So as we come to the end of our time together today, some thoughts to carry us through. Okay. Being thoughtful about what we say matters. Being thoughtful about what we hear matters too. Relationships thrive when both people take responsibility. One for speaking with care and the other for listening with curiosity. Because healthy relationships aren't built by people who never offend each other. They're built by people who know how to navigate offense when it happens. So some reflection thoughts to carry you through until we meet again in a couple of weeks. What types of comments offend you most easily? Why? What experiences might contribute to those reactions? Do you tend to assume intent when you're hurt? Like if you're hurt, then somebody meant to do it to you. Always. Have you ever offended someone without meaning to? I have. When it happens, I try to take ownership and apologize. Are there places where you've ignored behavior that actually deserves a boundary and a little bit of offense? And what's the difference between protecting your peace and avoiding difficult conversations? Because sometimes you'll sacrifice your long-term peace to avoid a short-term discomfort. And that is never a good exchange. Much better to just step right into the middle of the difficult conversation, say the hard things, feel the emotions, and then embrace your peace on the other side. Thank you so much for stopping by today. Don't forget to hit subscribe to get all the latest episodes, and find me on social media at Angela's Living Room on all platforms. Have a fantastic day.